Snow fell the night they first entered her sketch. Flakes drifted through the street lamps' glow in soft spirals, settling over the quiet town like dust on an old memory. Evan Hale walked with his daughter, Murrin, her mitten hand tucked into his coat pocket. They'd stayed late at the community studio, where he guided her small fingers across paper, teaching her shading the way his late wife once taught him. Her laughter still clung to him, bright and fragile in the cold. Then Murrin stopped mid-step. "Dad, she's drawing us." Evan followed her gaze. Across the narrow street, beneath the trembling light, the homeless woman sat cross-legged on cardboard. Layers of wool and frayed scarves wrapped around her like a cocoon. Her hair was a dark river matted by winter. But her eyes, quiet, watchful, fiercely alive, tracked them with startling clarity. A charcoal pencil moved in her hand, fast but gentle, like someone tracing a memory before it slipped. Evan started to reach for his wallet, but Murrin tugged his coat. "Please don't make her feel bad." He hesitated, lowering his hand. She was right. Kindness wasn't always money. When they approached, the woman didn't flinch. She simply tore the sheet from her pad and held it out. Evan stared. The portrait was soft, intimate, the kind of captured truth that made your chest ache. Murrin's smile, shy but determined, was exact, and Evan's tilted posture, ever so slightly leaning toward his daughter, was a tenderness he never noticed he showed. "You drew this fast," he whispered. She dipped her head once, a small, almost apologetic nod. "Thank you," Murrin said, voice bright with sincerity. The woman's fingers trembled as she set the charcoal down, as if unused of gratitude. Evan tried offering her a few bills anyway, gentle, not insisting, but she recoiled, pressing her hands to her chest. Her voice was barely there, brittle. "No money." Murrin smiled and placed a small packet of warm biscuits beside her instead. The woman hesitated, then lifted them slowly, as though afraid they might vanish. Evan walked away with the portrait held carefully against his body. Something in him shifted, a quiet pull he didn't yet understand. He framed the portrait that same night. It rested beside the only painting his wife finished before her illness took her, soft morning light across an empty shoreline. Murrin found him staring at both pieces, his eyes distant and full. "Dad," she whispered, "she sees people like you do." Evan swallowed. "Maybe even better." Over the next week, small rituals formed without intention. Every morning on the walk to school, Murrin left a paper cup of hot tea near the woman's box. Sometimes a folded mittens pair, sometimes a doodle she drew herself. The woman, Liora, she finally whispered one morning, so softly it felt like a secret, accepted each offering with a nod that always looked half afraid. Sometimes Evan stayed back a few steps, watching from a respectful distance. She sketched constantly, strangers, stray dogs, passing buses, the sagging buildings. She captured the world not as it was but as it felt. He recognized the hunger in her art, the longing. One evening he sat beside her, leaving space. "You ever draw for yourself?" Her fingers tightened around the pencil. "Used to." Murrin leaned in, her little voice gentler than any adult's could be. "Do you miss it?" A long silence. Then a nod. Quick, painful. Evan didn't push. Some truths were heavy. They ease into the world only when ready. But he bought a set of quality charcoals and left them near her box the next morning. When he returned that evening, she hadn't moved them. Instead, she looked at him with watered eyes and whispered, "Too much." "It's just kindness," he said. She pressed a hand to her heart, as if unused to having one. The local art exhibition arrived with the stir of a small town pretending it was bigger than it was. Evan submitted one of his own pieces and, on a fragile impulse, brought the framed portrait Liora drew. "I want people to see how she sees the world," he told the curator. "And who is the artist?" the curator asked, admiring the lines. "A friend," Evan answered, name withheld for now. The exhibition hall filled with murmurs, warm lights, and the soft scrape of shoes on polished floors. Murrin tugged Evan toward their wall section, excitement making her almost bounce. They found a small crowd gathered, but not around Evan's painting. Around Lyra's. A renowned curator, white-haired, sharp-eyed, known for his impossible standards, stood frozen before it. His lips parted. His chest rose in a trembling breath. "This," he whispered, touching the air above the frame. "This is the work of Liora Vale." Evan turned rigid. Murrin's fingers dug into his sleeve. The curator swallowed hard. "But she's dead. She died 12 years ago." "Dad," Murrin whispered, voice small. "She's not dead." The room filled with hushed confusion, speculation, excitement dripping like honey. Dealers leaned in. Artists whispered. Someone snapped a photo. Someone else asked if this was a posthumous reveal. Evan backed away, heart pounding. He knew what attention did to fragile people. The next morning he found Lyra trembling beneath the street lamp she always claimed. Her cardboard shelter was gone. Her sketchbook pressed to her chest as if shielding her heart. "They're looking," she whispered before he spoke. Evan crouched, keeping his voice low. "Lyra, who are they?" "Dealers, collectors, thieves." Her breath shook. "My husband." Murrin stepped forward and wrapped her arms around Lyra's waist. The woman froze, utterly still, before folding down to hold the child with a kind of reverence, as though no one had touched her gently in years. Evan guided them to his home. The warmth hit Lyra like a blow. She stood motionless in the doorway, taking in the living room's amber glow, the faint smell of paint, Murrin's scattered crayons. "You're safe here," Evan said quietly. "You can rest." She trembled as she removed her coat. Beneath it, she was smaller than he expected. Thin wrists, slight shoulders, a body shaped by too much cold and too many nights alone. They gave her the attic room near Evan's studio. She sat on the bed, staring at the quilt as if such comfort was hard to touch. After Murrin fell asleep, Lyra finally whispered her story. Her voice cracked with every sentence. She was a rising star once, Liora Vale, known for portraits that felt like breathing things. Her work soared high. Her exhibitions flourished. Then her husband took control. "He stole my canvases," she said. "Sold them, signed them, told people I was too unstable to paint, too fragile, a danger to myself." Evan closed his eyes as something hot and furious rose in him. "When I tried to leave," she continued, "he said the world believed him more than me." A shiver, and he was right. She fled, vanished, let the world believe she died because the truth felt worse. Evan didn't speak. He simply placed a cup of tea in her shaking hands and sat beside her, offering presents instead of questions. In the days that followed, Lyra watched Evan paint in his small studio. He didn't ask her to join. He simply left supplies nearby, brushes washed, canvas blank, waiting without pressure. Murrin drew beside her, telling stories with crayon swirls. Lyra began correcting her shading with gentle touches, small suggestions. The first time she reached for a brush of her own, Evan pretended not to notice, giving her the privacy of rediscovery. But he heard the first stroke, and the quiet gasp she made afterward. That night, she left a half-finished portrait on the easel, Murrin laughing in the glow of a window, eyes bright with childhood wonder. It was the most alive thing he'd seen in years. When word spread through town of a miracle reappearance, the search intensified. Offers poured in. Dealers prowled. And then her husband arrived. He stepped into the community studio during a class, the sliding door slamming like a gunshot. Tall, charming, a smile cold enough to burn. "Lyra," he purred, "I've been searching everywhere." Lyra froze, charcoal falling from her fingers. Evan stepped between them, palm steady, voice low. "She's not going anywhere with you." The husband laughed softly. "You think you matter here." Lyra's breath shook, until Murrin ran to her and grabbed her hand. Something changed. Lyra lifted her chin. "You stole my work," she said, voice trembling but loud enough for everyone. "You stole my name. You will not take my life." Students stopped. Witnesses turned. Someone called the police. For the first time in years, Liora Vale stood firm. Her husband lunged, but Evan caught his arm and held him until officers stormed in. The arrest was fast, public, undeniable. Fraud, theft, assault, charges long suppressed now rising like dust exposed to sunlight. When he was dragged away, Liora collapsed into Evan's arms, not from fear, but from release. In the weeks that followed, the world wanted her again. Curators begged, galleries pleaded, collectors offered sums that made Evan dizzy. But Liora chose slowly. Carefully, she painted in Evan's studio each morning. She made tea with Morin each night. She joined their rituals as if she'd been waiting her whole life for a home that wasn't built from fear. One snowy evening, Evan found her staring at the framed portrait from the street lamp night. "I drew this because," she whispered, "the warmth between you two, it hurt, but in a way that made me feel alive." He stepped beside her. "I kept it here because I didn't know anyone could see us the way you did." Their hands brushed. Neither pulled away. The first snow of the new year drifted outside when the final beat of their story arrived. The same street lamp, the same glow, but Liora wasn't shivering beneath it now. She stood beside Evan, stronger, softer, warm. She held out a new portrait, the three of them together. Evan, Morin, and Liora, shoulders touching, hearts visible. "I don't want to disappear anymore," she whispered. Evan cupped her hand around the frame. "You don't have to." The doorway behind them glowed with home light. Morin called their names, her voice bright as the snow. Evan gently intertwined his fingers with Liora's. This time, she didn't let go. She stepped into his home, into their home, like someone finally choosing her own life. And he followed her inside with a heart no longer half empty. Some stories aren't found. They are drawn, stroke by trembling stroke, until love remembers its way back. If this story touched your heart, don't forget to subscribe for more tender, human stories just like this. Quiet tales of kindness, redemption, and the unexpected families we find along the way.